Let's go. Everyone, come in, grab a seat, grab a drink, whatever you got to do to get comfortable. I am Jamal, one half of the Professional Amateurs podcast, but we not on that today. Y'all know what we on. We talking about my beloved Duke Blue Devils now. Since the last time I have been up here chatting with you guys, I guess a lot is going on. Duke is now 17-1, 6-0 in the ACC. Last time I came to you guys talking, there were some concerns. Not just me being concerned. It seems like the entire fan base was like in an uproar, nervous, had their undies in a bunch over the team defense or lack thereof ever since the game with Lipscomb, which was midway through December. Duke has been looking a little suspect on the defensive end, to say the least. The Lipscomb game, the Texas Tech game right after that, which coincidentally was Duke's first and only loss of the season. A little shaky. And then the Georgia Tech game came, and the defense looked completely non-characteristic of what we had been seeing prior to the Lipscomb game, as well as the Florida State game. And then the first half of the Louisville game was very, very problematic. But I had came on this show and basically said that, yeah, it was a little concerning that the numbers weren't where we wanted them to be. But I don't necessarily know if it was a result of defensive slippage or if it was just like, these guys getting hot. They know they're playing Duke. These guys are getting hot, having good nights. You know, we typically see that when Duke plays somebody. Everybody knows when Duke is on the schedule. Everybody circles that game on the calendar. Everybody alerts their mom, their auntie, their grandma, their cousins, their uncles. Everybody, look, we playing Duke tonight. Y'all make sure y'all watch me. I'm going to be on national TV. And then they proceed to play the game of their life. And in the very next game, crickets. You know, Duke fans, we are all too familiar with this. So it's been sort of similar to that. Now, somewhere around the second half of the Louisville game, Dame Sarr went into Bad Boys Detroit Pistons Dennis Rodman mode and decided to completely take Ryan Conwell out of the game, and coincidentally decided to completely switch the trajectory of where Duke's season was heading. That one decision alone completely changed the trajectory of where Duke's season is heading. The decision for John Shire to put Dame Sarr onto Ryan Conwell thrusted him into a role that I'm not even sure that he was prepared to embrace solely when the season started. But that role is to solely become the team's defensive stopper, the disruptor, the guy that makes life a living hell for the opposing team and their best player. Now, the Ryan Conwell thing happened, in which Ryan Conwell went nuts against Duke. In the first half, man, it just seemed like he couldn't miss anything. Second half, water was shut off completely, and this continued to be more the same. I felt like the SMU game was an outlier because numbers-wise, SMU shot 50% from the floor, 50% from the three, and it just looked like, oh man, here we go, back to the Duke we've been seeing. But upon rewatching that game, Duke played very well defensively in the SMU game. Honestly, if you ask me, I don't think the defensive slippage that we saw in first half Louisville, Florida State, Georgia Tech, first half Lipscomb was there. I just felt like Duke gave SMU a lot of tough mid-range shots, contested tough mid-range shots. SMU knocked them out of the park. Like, they played very, very well. So I'm not really hanging that one on the Duke's defensive slippage. But since then, Duke made the West Coast road trip to California, in which I'm not sure. Well, I'm pretty sure a lot of Duke fans know it now because this stat has been repeated over and over and over since they did it. But prior to Duke taking this trip, only one team had successfully made that West Coast road trip, and that was Wake Forest last year. Yeah, I know it's a small sample size, and this is only the second year those two teams that have no business in the ACC. Let me throw that in there. Have been in the ACC, but you know, context matters, bro. Like, a lot of teams went to the West Coast. A lot of teams came back to the West Coast 1-1, 0-2. 0-2. Shout out to UNC for going to that West Coast road trip, going 0-2 this year. But we're not focusing on them tonight. But Duke actually did go to this West Coast, and the defense looked phenomenal. Similar to what he did in the Louisville game. Dame Sarr took Dede Ames and said, nah, nothing. Literally. The best scorer. He's not particularly prolific scorer, around 17, 18 tonight, Dede Ames was, but very, very shifty guy, very hard guy to stay in front of, very hard guy to keep out of the paint, very hard guy to keep from getting whatever he wants because he's that type of talent. And Dame Sarr pretty much just said, nah, it'll be none of that tonight. It won't be no heroic, mama, look at me, we playing Duke performances tonight. Went in there and shut his water off, and that was very impressive. But I think it kind of got overshadowed by the fact that Duke just couldn't throw the rock in the ocean, standing on the beach. Couldn't do it. The California game was abysmal as far as, let me get the numbers up just to be specific in what we shot. It was horrible. Duke scored 71 points against Cal in the game in which we shot 45% from the floor. Pretty bad, right? 22% from the three-point line. Pretty bad, right? 47% from the free throw line. Pretty bad, right? But that's just how elite Duke's defensive performance was in that California game. They held Cal to 37% from the floor. Same as us, 22% from the three-point line, which neither one of us had any business shooting threes. Duke shot 32 threes that game. I had a conversation with a guy on Twitter, and I get it, which I'll address too as we get to the Stanford game, but I understand the notion of Duke fans having, I don't want to see us take this many threes in the game. I felt like out of those 32, maybe 29 of them were absolutely wide open, just clean looks. I don't think they took many forced bad look threes in that California game. They just didn't hit any of the threes that they took for the most part. 7 of 32. Cal was 5 of 23. Ever since then, everything has looked up for Duke considerably on the defensive end. The very next game after the Cal game, in which, like I was specifying, that Dame shut off the water for Dede Ames. The same night that Duke defeated Cal in an ugly game, UNC lost to Stanford in a game in which Abuka Okori, which is a standout freshman for Stanford, scored a career high 36 points, 9 assists, just lit it up. Like Stanford lit UNC up, specifically Okori lit UNC up. Very next game that Duke played after Cal, Dame draws the assignment on Abuka Okori and completely took this kid out of everything he wanted to do. Now, defensively, Duke brought it, but unlike the Cal game, offensively, Duke brought it as well. This was Duke's most complete game, and I'll get to that in a second. I'm just going to focus on what Dame did individually right now. What he individually did I'm going to bring the numbers up so I can be specific. I believe it was 9 shots that Okori took to score his 9 points. Had only 9 points after scoring 36 2 days later against UNC. Or a couple of days later, I'm not sure. The game was on a Wednesday and then a Saturday. But yeah, very next game after the UNC game where he had 36, Abuka Okori drops 9 against Duke, 3 for 9 from the field, 1 for 5 from the 3-point line, 4 turnovers. Just completely shut his water off. The things that Dame Sarr can do on the defensive end, honestly, like I saw the signs of it in the beginning of the season, preseason. You could see from the clips and just how active he was with his hands and how he does not die on screens. It's like literally impossible to screen this kid. He does not allow himself to get screened, which contributes into how effective of a defender he is, particularly on a guy like Okori. So he took Dede Ames, shut his water off, took Abuka Okori, shut his water off, and it resulted in probably 2 of Duke's best defensive performances this year, 100% 2 of Duke's most important defensive performances this year. Because the narrative was starting to get out there, and not even just that, not even like that Duke has to play for narratives, but it's just a simple fact that You need that. Basketball confidence is a trickle effect. It's like, and it can go either way. You could string together a couple of great plays, a couple of great games, and then that just trickles down, and then your confidence is sky high going forward. And it can be the complete opposite. You can string together a couple of bad plays, a couple of bad games, and then your confidence level sinks because of that. And I didn't want Duke to fall into the land of second guessing what they were on the defensive end, particularly on the defensive end. Felt like the Stanford game, as I said, was Duke's most complete game. As a team, not even just what Duke did defensively or Dame individually did defensively against a Corey. As a team, Duke was amazing. Held Stanford at 35%. 19 of 54 from the floor is elite. 24% from the three-point line. 6 of 25 is elite. Not only to mention that, Duke won a game by 30, scoring 80 points, in which they only took 10 3-pointers. 4 for 10 for the three-point line, 40%, which is where you want your team to be, around the 40% range. John Shire just said, enough is enough. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I spoke about that earlier. A lot of the fan base were kind of like, why do we shoot so many threes, especially after the California game when we shot so many and didn't make enough, like 32 threes in the Cal game. Very next game, we shoot 10 threes. That was intentional. That was specifically like John going to these guys like, look, we have the best player in the country who had 30 and 14 in the Stanford game. We have the best player in the country. We got another guy in the post, and Patrick Gamba, who we can get the ball inside, and he can do work either via scoring or either finding open guys. So we have guys that we can go to 5-6 feet away from the basket and create good offense. There's no need for us to everybody. Even though I like the film doesn't lie, we're not taking bad threes. We haven't been all year. Now we haven't been hitting them to the clip that I would like to see, but I felt like the threes that we've been taking have been clean shots, good looks. You know, they just haven't been falling. But John specifically had the team go away from the 3-point shooting, focus more on getting the ball on the inside, and it was just kind of like a breath of fresh air. Like, finally, man, finally. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just a concerted effort to get offense closer to the basket, which you don't see a lot of in 2026. Arizona's one of those teams. Coincidentally, they're the number one team in the country right now that just doesn't take a lot of threes. They're one of those teams that just win the old-fashioned way. Dunks, layups, shots close to the basket. Like, that's our bread and butter. And Duke showed a lot of that in the Stanford game. So it'll be interesting to see how many more times that we show this concerted effort to play bully ball, so to speak. It wasn't a lot of bullying. It was just a concerted effort, like I said, to get shots closer to the rim, which I'm completely fine with. Now, because of that, and this West Coast road trip, the way Duke has looked, Duke has shot back up the rankings, suffered a little bit. This Ken Palm thing, it does not matter much to me, but I know it matters for the landscape and as far as building your resume and your case as far as being a number one seed, which let me go ahead and throw this out there. And this is the direction that I want to go, because y'all know this podcast is about feels for me, man. Like, it's about how I feel, like what's going on. And I feel like not necessarily that Duke is getting respected, but I feel like Duke is flying under the radar, man. Like, can you believe that? Like, a Duke basketball team with the best player in the country, number one recruiting class in the country, 17-1, undefeated in conference play at 6-0, is flying under the radar. An underrated team. And you know what? I don't have a problem with it. I'm cool. I'm cool with y'all staying asleep. I'm cool with y'all looking at Duke and taking a small game or a couple of game sample size out of the 18 we played and coming up with your conclusions that Duke is just not good enough, which that would be wrong, you know. And I don't really understand. Part of me, I'm changing, y'all. Thank God for growth, you know, because part of me would have looked at this and been like, what are y'all doing? Like, why is Michigan considered to be so much better than Duke? UConn considered to be so much better than Duke. Based off a couple of early struggles in conference play, we didn't beat Georgia Tech by 20 plus points. We didn't beat Florida State by 20 plus points. And then people kind of took that and was like, whoa, I don't think this Duke team is good enough to win the title. Like, nobody said that about UConn when they went to Georgetown and almost lost. Nobody said it about UConn when they went to DePaul and almost lost. Nobody said that about Michigan when they went to Penn State and almost lost. Like, that type of stuff happens. I just don't understand how the narrative has flipped for Duke and somehow they have become undervalued, underappreciated, underrated. Like, how do you underrate this team? I don't understand. But they are, nationally speaking. Now, Ken Palm got a different way of looking at things. Ken Palm has Duke right now as the number 3 ranked team in the country, according to his rankings. I'm gonna pull it up. Offensively, Duke has an offensive rating of 126.0, which is good enough to be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9th in the country. Ken Palm don't put it in order. I'm sorry, I gotta actually count it. Defensive rating. A defensive rating of 93.2, which has Duke 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th in the country. So 6th defensively, 9th offensively. Pretty good. I'll take that. How do you underrate a team that has been that good on both ends of the floor all season long, consistently? Now, the Lipscomb through Louisville, through SMU stretch, I'll say that. The numbers have dropped. The numbers dropped considerably in that. And if you just look at a Duke in a vacuum from the Lipscomb game through the SMU game, I can kind of see how you would draw that conclusion. But no season is played like that, man. We're literally playing a college basketball season in which elite teams hope to play about 40 games. We've only played 18 of them. And based off that, they've only lost once in a game where they shouldn't even have lost. Like, I don't really understand why this team isn't getting the respect that it deserves, but this team is definitely flying under the radar. And it's kind of similar. I had brought this up. I was on TikTok live at the game, which I go on TikTok live pretty much after every game. You guys should follow the TikTok page, Brotherhood Breakdown, and join me up there. It's a lot of fun. But I was saying on TikTok live after the Stanford game that this team is showing a lot of similarities in 2015. In the fact that, okay, they got a superstar freshman that is elite offensively, defensively. The other team would like to get him in space and attack him. That's just what they want to do. They did that with Ja. Jalil Okafor was one of those guys that was just elite offensively. You couldn't do anything with him on the block. You couldn't do anything with him, period. But on the other end, that was the game plan. Get this guy pick and rolls, get him in space, and let's attack him from there. And that Duke team, if people can remember, because a lot of people only remember the finished product, people remember at the end of the day that they ended up cutting the nets down. But that Duke team had their defensive issues all season long. I mean, all season long, to the point that that team was forced to go in zone a lot. Like, we've seen a couple of possessions of the zone in this particular with this particular roster, which is a different type of zone, which I actually love this. I wish we would see more of it. Not even just out of like we can't guard, but just the activity that we got, because we run a 3-2 with Dame at the top usually, and then he just makes life hell for the ball handler. And man, I would love to see more of that zone, honestly. But it was different in 2015. 2015 was like, we really can't guard. We can't guard in space. We are having problem containing dribble penetration. Tyus wasn't that good of a defender on ball. Quinn wasn't that good of a defender on ball. Neither was Ja. So that was problematic when it came time for pick and roll coverage. And we had to do something about it. And I also felt like that Duke team flew under the radar because, rightfully so, Kentucky had an undefeated campaign. If you guys can remember, Duke was the 1 seed, but Duke was the last 1 seed. It was almost like, we got to make y'all entering the tournament with only 4 losses. I guess you deserve to be 1 seed, but Kentucky was considered to be better. Wisconsin was considered to be better, which blew my mind because Duke went on the road early in the year in the ACC Big Ten Challenge and beat Wisconsin. But all season long, Wisconsin was considered to be better than Duke. Also that year, Villanova was considered to be better than Duke. And it was just one of those things where, like, I felt like Duke was good enough to win the title all year, but nobody else did. Like outside of the fan base, I'm pretty sure a whole lot of people in the fan base thought that Duke was good enough, but nationally speaking, no, they didn't get that respect until it was too late. Until they was holding that trophy up, and you had to respect them. And I feel like the same thing is going on with this team. Star offensive player that's a freshman with some defensive concerns. I won't say struggle concerns. And as a whole, I felt like the team is getting viewed as good, not great. Duke is good, but yeah. And I felt like it was a lot of that in 2015 as well. So it's a lot of striking similarities. Hopefully, like 2015, this team can turn the corner and actually get it together. That would be nice. It's looking like now. Honestly, I'm not even saying this team is necessarily needs to turn a corner defensively, because what I was pointing out to the guy who had that we were kind of going back and forth with this on the TikTok live is that I actually think defensively this team is leaps and bounds ahead of what 2015 was. I felt like the small sample size in which I stated earlier with between the Lipscomb game, if you want to throw the second half of the Texas Tech game in there, um, and which I don't feel like a lot of that was Duke just being bad defensively. I felt like Christian Anderson was just one of the best players in the country. He made one of the best players in the country. He made plays like that, a lot of tough shots, and it is what it is sometimes. But if you want to take Duke in a vacuum from Lipscomb on to SMU, it is what it is. I can kind of, like I said, I can kind of see where you would go with that, but season's much larger than that, man. From that time frame on, I think the narrative had been painted, because before Lipscomb, the narrative was different on this Duke team, and them being a team that everybody thought could win. And I'm not even trying to, I don't want to slam the media like that, saying, because I still see people saying this Duke team is good enough to potentially win a national championship. It's just the language is different around this team now. And I think it started as a direct result of that stretch that I just alluded to. The stretch of games between Lipscomb and SMU that's completely drove in a narrative on Duke that I just think is false. And it's dangerous for people to consider Duke in that light, because Duke is elite. Yeah, I'm a fan. Yeah, I'm going to be biased. So what? That doesn't make anything that I'm saying less true. The numbers back it up. Top 10 offense, top 10 defense. Been that virtually all year outside of that little stretch I'm talking about. Defense got real bad numbers wise, y'all. I'm trying to tell you. The numbers were, but it is what it is. So I feel like that's a very dangerous narrative to paint. And I feel like this Duke team flying under the radar is something that they should embrace. Even if what Quinn Cook said, and man, that just came to me. The whole Duke is never the underdog thing. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that speech was before the Wisconsin game in 2015 when we went on the road and everybody thought Duke would lose. Like, he's right. Duke is literally never, like, Duke should never be the underdog. But I feel like in regards to national championship contenders and how the rest of the country feels about national championship contenders, Duke is 100% the underdog, and they should embrace that narrative, because I've said this over and over. This is not a front-running team. This is a team that needs to know you can be beat, even though it's really hard to drive home the fact that you can be beat any given night to a group of 18, 19-year-olds that hasn't been beaten. They have one loss. That they were not beaten in that Texas Tech game. And they know that. They know that that loss was self-inflicted. So it's a little, I got kids. You want to teach your kids lessons, but it's hard to teach your kid a lesson when they haven't really been bitten because of the things that they're doing. I would like to see this Duke team continue to play at the level that they're playing at. But it's an up and down season, man. Like, it's an up and down season, and I want them to continue to not to continue, because I'm not. I'm pretty sure that I'm not. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what John is telling these guys in practice. If it were me, I would be showing these guys these clips. Look, these guys think that Michigan is better than y'all, which we will have a chance to have that play out man to man, mano y mano, in a couple of weeks. Look, guys, they even think Purdue is better than y'all. Like, it's really, I saw a mock, like, which I kind of hate these things, especially in like January, February, like a mock tournament bracket thing where like Duke is projected to be like the first, second seed. Like, are you kidding me? You kidding me? It's four teams that you believe like genuinely in your heart that are better than Duke. Four teams. It's ridiculous. So I would love for them to embrace this underdog narrative, and to continue to play with a chip on their shoulder. Because, like I was saying, this team is not a front running team. This team has to play gritty. The team has to play with heart and extra intensity, and they have to kind of play mad and play from a lens of a disrespected team. Because I think if they play like that, the effort and energy will always be there on the defensive end. And you'll see a night and day difference in results with this team. When this team defends the way that they went to California and defended, I think this team can compete with the Hornets. Hornets are very talented, man. I don't care what the record say. Maybe that was the wrong team. This team could probably compete with the Wizards. Wizards got talent too. We got to stop that notion that really good college teams can hang with NBA teams. Like, it's the most ridiculous thing ever. I was trying to drive home a point that I don't think it's a team in college basketball that can compete with them. Let me say that like that versus saying that they can beat guys that play basketball for a living. Like, it's really wild because Alex Sarr, Duke don't have a player on their roster better than Alex Sarr right now to this day. Cam Boozer included, which we will get there one day, I believe. But that's just an example. But if Duke continues to play the defense that they played in California, I don't see a team in America that can beat them if they play like that. But they have to play, and I felt like the road trip, they attacked that road trip with a sense of urgency, like almost like we're at a crossroads in our season, and we got to do something differently, y'all. Our effort and energy has to be there. Our communication has to be better, which communication is still not where I would like to see it as a whole. I think Dame is elite at communicating. He's the only one that I can visibly see with my own two eyes that's communicating all the time. He communicates everything he does on the defensive end, which I would like to see everybody else follow that mode and just talk. You can't be an elite defense without talking. Any coach will tell you that. But defensively, man, is where this team is going to make its mark. And I feel like if they play with that chip, if they play with that fire, that mode of like, how dare y'all? How dare y'all talk about us like we're not Duke? That will make the defense that much better. And that will make this team that much harder to do anything with, defend, anything. Offensively, I think this team has been fine. Even though the shooting, I would like to see the shooting a lot better. I feel like that'll come around. And that's one of those scary things where if Duke has like a lights out shooting game, like then they could probably compete with the Wizards or the Hornets. Like, seriously. That's the one area that hasn't like lived up to the level that I believed it could. I guess that's the best way I could put that. Like, I view this team, the pieces are there, man, as being an elite offensive team. I don't necessarily think they're elite. I think they're really good. I feel like they can reach an elite level on the offensive end. I haven't given up hope on that. I haven't given up hope on Nick Amenia hitting his open shots. As long as he don't pump fake him, he's become the pump fake king, man. Which I'm pretty sure that they talked about that with him in between the Stanford and the Cal game, because we saw a lot fewer pump fakes. It was like a lot of the shots he took he didn't take in the Cal game was like, what are you doing, Nick? Just shoot the ball, you open. Like, all of this pump faking. But I'm pretty sure the coaching staff let him know something about it because he looked completely different. And as far as like the way he attacked in Stanford. So, yeah, man, Duke's under the radar, flying under the radar. And I don't got a problem with it. I'd have zero problem with it. Like I said, I hope the entire country stays asleep and never wants to come around to the idea that this Duke team can and probably is elite and one of the better teams in college basketball. Now, I feel like up the upcoming schedule, we have Wake Forest coming up on January 24th, and then Louisville, and then Virginia Tech. Um, Boston College, UNC, Pitt. The Clemson game will be a very good litmus test. The UNC game as well. I'm not sure if Michael will play in the Louisville game. I'm almost willing to say that he is done. I hope not. I would love to see him come back and play, especially in the Duke game. It's not looking too good for that. But the UNC game is a pressure game that, none of the guys, I feel like that'll be a good litmus test. But the game where I'm really trying to get to is the game that we really gonna find out and that the country is really gonna formulate their opinion about Duke for the rest of the season is February 21st. We are a month away from their primetime matchup with what is right now number 3 Michigan in Washington D.C. on a neutral court. I feel like that's the game that, based on how it goes, basically just really the country is gonna have their permanent opinions formulated about Duke based off that game solely. That's just my bold prediction. I think that whatever it looks like, if Duke comes out and handles Michigan, wins that game, not necessarily like in a blowout. You don't never really expect a blowout in these games, but I didn't necessarily expect a blowout against Kentucky in 2019, and boom, 34-point smacking. So you just never really know. But if Duke comes out and just controls the game and wins, I feel like the narrative on Duke will be like, wait a minute, this team might be a front runner for the national championship. And if it goes the other way, I feel like people will be like, see, Duke is good, but I will say this, and then I'll close on this. You hear a lot of that stuff about Cam and Caden Boozer and, you know, what makes them what they are. And a lot of times you'll hear people saying about it, they're just winners. They win. Whenever they play, they win. And it's just like, as a Duke fan, that would drive me nuts. We'd be like, shut up. Like, why are you like harping on the fact that who cares? Like, that they won a bunch of games in high school? Like, what? Like, but you would think that is not a real, like, characteristic of, or a real intangible thing that you could actually apply to your team as far as like winning. But it does. Once you realize that this kid has a different gear, I'm gonna point this out. I'm not sure how many other fans noticed this, but I feel like Cam Boozer took the Abuka Okori, the matchup with Stanford, even though he was never gonna guard him. They were never gonna guard each other straight up. I felt like he took the rhetoric behind Abuka Okori and how the nation and ACC fans and the writers looked at him in comparison to Cameron Boozer and felt disrespected. You know how I know? I've never seen Cam come out that aggressive in my life in a Duke uniform. Cam is a really good scorer, but he's one of those let the game come to him type guys. It's almost like I wish Cam would be more aggressive as far as like looking for his own offense. He just doesn't. But that Stanford game, he went out. Hoopers know, bro. As a hooper, that was a message sending type performance he had. To let him and the rest of the country know it's levels to this, man. Kid is good, but keep his name out of my mouth, or keep his name out of y'all's mouth when y'all speaking about me. We are not the same. And I felt like he went out of his way, not necessarily out of his way, but he made it his business to show the country, the world, whatever. Abuka Okori, we are not the same, bro. And that's the type of thing that you don't realize. Like, that's what they're talking about when they say like he's just a winner. Like, he approaches like that, and it's nothing. Y'all don't worry about this. We're gonna go out here and show everybody what's up. So I feel like in that Michigan game, Cam will have one of those performances where he is hell bent on going out there showing everybody what's up. That's my optimism speaking as a Duke fan. But we got to be like that, man. That type of stuff, like you realize, you think it's weird until you realize, like, oh man, this kid really is not gonna let us lose. Like he really doesn't lose. He's really gonna do everything that he has to do in order for us. Like you brush that type of stuff off and you blow it off and like, yeah, whatever, man. He's a winner. Okay, you won all these games in high school. Whoop de doo. Until you realize it's something to it. It's something to it. So hopefully we'll see more of that winning mentality, to that fire personality, because I saw it in the Stanford game. And that just like highlighted the whole he's a winner narrative to me. And then that's one of those instances where, like, okay, I get it. I get it now. This is what people mean when they say that type of stuff. So remains to be seen, man. I'm glad that Duke is flying under the radar. I'm glad that even though they're flying under the radar, they're 17-1 and seem to be getting better. So remains to be seen on what the rest of this season has in store. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up on this. I will be back with you guys in about a week or so. I'm try to get a good grouping of these Duke games, because I realized I had intentionally intended on just coming every single week, or every single game and post game. But I feel like the direct interaction with the fans is the vibe I'm looking for more post game. So that's why I enjoy doing all of my post game content on TikTok Live. But I will be coming back just to get my thoughts, because like I said, I use this as a therapy session, man, just to vent and get my thoughts off about my boys. I love my Blue Devils, man. I enjoy talking about them. I enjoy getting my feels out about them. So I'm glad I got this platform, and I will be with you guys shortly after we group together a couple of more games. Now, y'all can go ahead and follow all of the pods movements, the Brotherhood Breakdown on TikTok, Brotherhood Breakdown on Instagram, everywhere. And if you are listening to this on the pod feed and you would like to catch us or catch me in person, listen to me talking like I'm on Professional Amateurs and I got other guys with me. If you would like to see more of this, see more of me, particularly in person, you can follow us on the Brotherhood Breakdown. It's the YouTube channel as well. So thank everybody once again for locking in with me this time. I will catch y'all next time. And until then, let's go Duke.